Hello, I thought I might make a follow-up video just to talk about some of the performance and the characteristics of this plane now that I've spent quite a bit more time with it than I had in my last video, which was just at the end of the maiden. So there's not going to be any flying or anything really in this video, just me looking at the plane here on the bench and waffling about it for a while. So with that warning aside, probably the first thing that I should address is my misuse of the word flutter in the last video. Flutter is not the word I should have used. I should have said porpoising, because I think flutter implies that the plane or parts of the plane are actually sort of bending relative to other parts of the plane, but that's not what I was seeing. The whole thing was just one rigid block, but the rear of the plane was sort of going up and down a bit like that. Now, since the last video, immediately after that I put flight controller on it, and I haven't actually seen that since then, and I wasn't able to really reproduce it at will, and it didn't happen very often, and it didn't happen very, it wasn't very strong effect. But the only thing that I can sort of think that might have had something to do with it is the fact that these wingtips are fairly sharp at the leading edge, and they're fairly thin. It's barely a centimetre in thickness there, and they're 6 degrees angled downward relative to the fuselage. So in some situations, at certain speeds, I think this airfoil would be pointing almost directly into the airflow. Is that a bad thing? Because what seems like might have been happening is that certain speeds, let's say the air was coming just from a little bit above it like this, that would tend to make the tail of the plane go down, because normally there'd be a tail that would stop this kind of thing, but this effectively is the tail of the plane, so that would make the whole rear of the plane go down a bit. Then the air would be coming from below like that, which would make the rear of the plane go up a bit. So that's all I can think that might have caused that. Another thing I noticed in the maiden flight was that I couldn't trim it and roll quite to the degree that I wanted to. I actually bottomed out the trim on my radio, and when I landed and looked at the control surfaces here afterwards, I ended up with this, and so that one's going up and that one's going down. Not terrible, really. All things considered, could have been a lot worse, but I was a little bit disappointed, because what that means is that the wings are not straight to each other. So one of the wings is angled down a little bit more than the other one is. So that kind of ends up being a little bit like crow braking, which is where you put, say if you put your flaps down, you don't really want to pitch the plane down, so you put your ailerons up to counteract that, and it acts as a little bit of an air brake. So that's kind of the effect I've ended up with. So the wing is going down and the aileron's going up. So that's a pity. But yeah, it could have been worse. And as far as pitch goes, it wasn't terribly off, although pitch is the next thing to talk about. So I've had a hell of a time launching this thing when there's no wind. And it's only due to the fact that there are a lot of hills around here that I can use to throw this off that I managed to launch it at all on some days, especially with the heavier battery on it. But the problem is that it needs quite a bit of airspeed in order for this reflex of the trailing edge to have any effect, because at zero airspeed this does nothing at all. But what does have a lot of effect at zero airspeed is the motor. So immediately after you throw it, and if you slam it onto full throttle, the motor is pointing down 2 degrees. That's going to push the nose of the plane down. And until you've picked up enough airspeed to counteract that, yeah, you're not going to be having any pitching up effect from the trailing edge. So it's a real sort of a conundrum. It's a bit of a catch-22. You want to slam the throttle up really high to get airspeed, but if you do that, the nose of the plane's going to pitch down. What I should probably be trying is to move the CG back a bit, because that would probably help with that. But it's been flying quite well with the CG where I have it, which is just right at the top where the black carbon bit is there. And once you get past the launch, it has been flying fairly well like that, so I just didn't want to really try messing that up and end up with a tail-heavy plane and smash it to bits before I'd flown it a few times at least. So I will try some different CG positions in the future. But for the time being, it's performing fairly well. I'm happy enough with it as is, and it doesn't even seem that inefficient, just judging by current draw and everything. So I'm not sure that it is really super nose heavy as it is, although landings are also a bit of an issue. You can't flare with it unless you're going really fast. So that's another issue with the reflex not having much effect. Well, maybe, I guess it is nose heavy then, huh? Anyway, I think what I'll do now is I'm just going to show you all of the the launches and landings that I've done so far, and then I'll show you the damage that those caused, and you may be surprised, at least I was.
Anyway, here goes. Alright, looking good so far. Oops.
Okay, so those are all the launches and landings that I've done, at least while I had a camera on it here. Oh, so I just gouged out a bit there for the run cam too, like I did last time. So that should give you an idea of how difficult it has been to launch and to land. But believe it or not, from all of that, the only damage is this dent on the front there, which is barely even a couple of millimeters deep. It's about that big. And on the wingtip here we have a little bit of dirt squashed into there. This is actually just the bare foam here, so it's very soft. I didn't cover it up or anything. Just a bit of mud squashed in there, and that's it. There's some dirt marks on there, of course, on the fins. One time I landed it, or one of those failed launches actually, I saw two big chunks of dirt come up, like, you know, when you're playing golf and you miss the golf ball and you chunk up a bit of dirt. So I think they must have come from there. But yeah, nothing's damaged, even though it took quite a few hits. So I'm really pleased with how this fiberglass over building foam works. It's very easy to shape. It's fairly nice and light and nice and strong as well. So my next plane will be probably using the same techniques, I think. So as for efficiency, I didn't really do any super detailed testing like I did with the Sky Hunterish versus Mini Talon, but I did at least do a test where, at least with 3S and 4S batteries, what current could it sustain a level altitude cruise, and what was the speed and efficiency at 8 amps current draw. So I did at least do those two measurements, which is what I was doing with the Mini Talon versus Sky Hunterish last time. Now this battery here that I was complaining about in my last video, I feel a bit bad about that because I actually gave it another try, like another cycle on the charger, and it seems to be okay. Not sure why it didn't. It's the first time I've had a battery that didn't just sort of work normally out of the box. But anyway, this is a 4S 5 amp hour, turns out to be a bit too heavy. For the Mini Talon it's really great. Mini Talon can cruise at 3.4 amps with this, but for this plane it's just a bit too heavy. So I've only used it once, and I think I'll just stick to these 3S batteries here, which are just perfect. So these are 5.2 amp hours each. Now flight times, I got 48 minutes with this one, and the cell voltage is finished at 3.75 volts per cell, which is pretty damn good. So that's about storage charge. This one I got 42 minutes, and the cells finished at 3.55 volts. But this is the flight that I uploaded last week with the Frosty Morning joyride. So for about 1/3 of that flight, I was pulling 8 or 9 amps, doing around about 75 kilometers per hour. As you saw in the video, it turned out to be quite a good video, that one. So I'd say if I wasn't doing that, probably could have got about 48 minutes with that one as well. So efficiency-wise, it's not too bad. That's at about 1,700 grams, or weight, I think it was. With this one, I didn't really do a full test because I swapped over halfway through to put this in the mini talent to compare it, so I'm not really sure how far it would get with that one. But like I say, it's just a bit too heavy for this plane. So I'll just go over to the computer now and show you a little bit of the footage from these, so you can see what sort of current draw it was doing at what point and what speed and all that kind of stuff, and then I think that'll be the end of this video.